My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California.
It is Friday, April 4th, 2025, and the current time is 1:46 p.m. And the images that will be uploaded to the Google Drive today reflect the ongoing criminal engagement in federal group stalking and monitoring, which is underway by the United States government. This is the federal government that's gang stalking, as it's proven in the state of California, which is engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring, which is a statewide criminal pattern of conduct, sexually violent and inhumane, and it is also state-sponsored terrorism. It is embedded into society where public corruption, massive public corruption, unprecedented public corruption that the federal government is a part of, literally relies on. This is how this system of surveillance exists in this country. And with regard to the details pertaining to the pattern of conduct that I remain subject to, the fake sun is in its zenith over the top of the same apartment building. And you will see gang stalking by children. You will see, and children are made gang stalkers with regard to, first of all, don't be ignorant. Satan very much uses children who demonstrate demon possession, as I've documented and have experienced that. And that also is a means of psychological torture by that demonic spirit that uses the vessels of children. But legally speaking, the people of the state make children gang stalkers, and that's why the people of the state are subject to prison for that. It is that which is psychologically harmful to the targeted individual who is effectively being threatened by children, even though you are not in any position. You shouldn't attack an adult, nor should you attack children, but understand how the pattern of conduct that is satanic is executed against the ordinary targeted individual, where even children are a part of that pattern of conduct. That's intentional and entirely malicious, and it's also demented. The entity that is gang stalking Unit 41, doing so under the fake sun at this time, 1:44 p.m. And this demon, this is how you're understanding what is stalking, what is gang stalking, what is domestic terrorism, what's surveillance while it's happening in your home, okay, where you live. And you can see somebody that is focusing their vision on the rocks outside of their apartment. They are outside of their front door while I'm walking around inside of the apartment, capturing all manner of light that is inexplicable, scientifically impossible to occur, and all on the inside of the apartment. And then I'm showing you what's the context regarding all that light that is impossible, i.e. directed light, impossible light activity, engineered light. That's the evidence of what is a fake sun outside, where everything is covered in that engineered light, and everyone living in that environment is intentionally in that environment, which is essentially a stage where everyone is acting, and the poor acting skills are going to result in prison and mental asylums. That particular mental health patient is legally represented by the third-party company, AVANATH Capital Management, as a gang stalking employee, as well as a gang stalking resident. He is also gang stalking with minor children who are also in the path, and at 1:44 p.m., he is also crossing path at this same apartment where I'm at, monitoring me, while he's walking on that same sidewalk where the fake sun is at 7:34 in the morning, if you'll recall the video documentation of the federal offense of domestic terrorism and psychological torture, while that same employee and resident of AVANATH at WOODSIDE, at 408 West G Street at 7:34 in the morning is on video captured, and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, that is, again, the demon possessed who are again, very poor actors standing on a poorly decorated stage where everyone is aware that all of the props are very unpersuasive and obviously fake. When you have what is 6 hours later, the sun over the same apartment building, like you can see as I document today, and you are always mindful of the totality of circumstances of all of the facts of the case and documenting what is the maintenance of an engineered environment, which is demonic, and that demonic character is terrorizing to the ordinary targeted individual. This is a criminal pattern of conduct that an entire population is sharing in intentionally, knowingly, obsessively. And it is also exhibiting what is a psychopathic concern with someone whom they have no legitimate interest in, both as a demon-possessed third party that wants to be situated under the Constitution as a private citizen, which they're not, they're going to be prosecuted, and also as a government. The government has no legitimate interest in myself as an American citizen, and I am the only one whose constitutional rights remain intact while I'm at the venue, and I'm not gang stalking the neighbors. I am the one that has maintained a body of evidence speaking to the fact that I am in fact being targeted by the government, who is doing that with a population, who is doing so in an environment that is also proven to be that which is consistent, and that consistency is proving a pattern of a supernatural character, which is what ties everyone together when they are indeed harassing and stalking in very psychotic and malicious and demonic ways. This is what the federal government is engaging in, and that's what is shown as I document the specific environment on this day, on April 4, 2025. And then there's also the juxtaposition, another angle of analysis when you're looking at the body of evidence where the fake sun is over me on this day in 2024. And what I've been documenting even before 2024, 2023, 22, 21, 20, 19, and 2018, what the entity has been doing with a fake sun, and with what the entity is doing with regard to my documentation of the entity that's being documented as demon-possessed and engaging in the criminal system referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring. But it is essentially revealing to the United States in a way that is irreducible and undeniable that we are all subject to surveillance, and this surveillance system is satanic in nature, and it's also speaking to the reality of Satan himself. In case you were ever ignorant or in denial about it or just ignore it, it's something that you should not ignore because it is to your benefit, not only with regard to the way in which life is going to continue to change in this country, the way that the government is going to continue to alter especially where its devices, its ongoing so-called secret endeavors are no longer maintained, as they're no longer secrets. This is inevitably affecting the way that the United States is going to operate going forward. And it's not just starting now with what I'm exposing. This has been the case, but you need to understand with regard to the spiritual reality that you are not capable of reasonably remaining ignorant to or ignoring for your own protection, by the way, it's going to inevitably have an impact on the way that the government operates because the government is in reliance on that which is satanic. The government is on a Satan's agenda, and the government is also engaging in what is very highly criminal conduct while it is in a position of authority in the United States. And the United States government that's gang stalking is the United States government that is essentially exposing itself, and that is literally relevant and proven by the maintenance of a supernatural occurrence over a bunch of demons that are gang stalking and psychologically torturing. 1:52 p.m. amplified booming inside of this apartment, which is audible activity. Everything that is occurring is directly relevant, and that which is subject to prosecution while you are being stalked, and it's an ongoing threat to your life and safety and well-being as well as liberty. The demons are exceedingly sexually perverted as well, and they are obsessed. So this is being surrounded by a bunch of mentally ill people who are obsessed with you and who are stalking and sought to do so in a manner that would alter the way that that target individual is seen in public, and also where they are being kidnapped and their characters being falsely depicted, meaning they're gang stalking you in order to falsely depict you as crazy, because only a crazy person contends or asserts that strangers are stalking them, and that is not the case. The target individual that is prosecuting with evidence of what is the exceedingly exceedingly unique, albeit proven, with tangible evidence of a pattern of conduct that is demonic in nature, is prosecuting actually mentally ill psychopaths for gang stalking someone that they don't know, where the government has no legitimate interest in that. And so in stalking me, which is a proven fact. So that malice of the entity's pattern of conduct is going to be flipped and used against it, and they will be diagnosed and they will be prosecuted. And audible activity of any level, let me be clear, the demons are already monitoring when I am listening to content on my devices, when the air conditioner is running, when the television is on, when I flush the toilet in the bathroom, when I'm walking around and the slippers on the ground. This is all audible activity. The demons are going above and beyond with the amplified audible activity. The demons can fly above the apartment complex in helicopter and never be audibly perceived. The reason why they engage in amplified audible activity is with the intent to psychologically torture. Based on that psychopathic appetite, that desire to harass someone who is prosecuting you. That's also relevant to your psychopathic disorder. You're doing it to someone that's not ignorant. You're doing it to somebody that's documenting it, publishing it, and is literally going to prosecute you by it and use you as an example to the rest of the world. That's mental illness, actually. Okay, so the entity is engaging in this, and this is relevant to what is criminal interference of quiet enjoyment, AVANATH's employees, AVANATH's residents, and AVANATH is gang stalking with the city of Ontario, the state that includes the population, none of whom have any constitutionally protected rights. They don't have a right to work at the facilitating venue, to live at the facilitating venue, to be on the grounds of the facilitating venue under the existing laws, state and federal constitutions. The government is gang stalking and has no constitutional authority, no legal authority, and nor does it have any legitimate interest when the purpose is to psychologically torture in furtherance of committing murder and kidnapping. This is the prosecution of that, and I want to be clear that the federal government is engaging in that and is also still engaging in what is that which it also maintains no legitimate interest, which is ongoing psychological warfare, which is the spiritual component where the government is also gang stalking you. So I want to be clear, this is all relevant for the ways in which the target individual, and that includes myself, who is going to recover. Okay, you're already subject to psychological harm when you're being gang stalked. The psychological component with regard to the spiritual attacks, that's what the demon possessed are also engaging in, and that is what the government is also going to be held accountable for. It's not just the ability to physically prove stalking by the state, it is also the psychological component, which again, establishing my credibility, speaking to what the demon possessed who are actually in existence, which the evidence proves, what they are also doing, which you cannot see, and it is psychological warfare, and the federal government is going to be criminally civilly liable for that, as well as its co-defendants, the people of the state. So the entity is, and understand the federal government, these are just titles. We use words in order to convey ideas and thoughts and whatnot. So you have a superficial distinction with regard to the ways in which the United States is exploiting notions such as the Constitution, the federal government, the state government, the civilian population. These are all demons, and the federal government is acting via the state and the people of the state. It is the government itself, the U.S. government, that's gang stalking throughout this country. Okay, so I want to make sure that that's also understood when I use these terms. Those that have knowledge about the law and the, for example, the branches of government, for the supremacy doctrine, the federal government versus the state. The federal government's pattern of conduct is underway in California. It is the federal government's criminal act of gang stalking, while the imps of the state engage in it, and I prove it and prosecute it. I'm prosecuting the federal government. So I want to be clear, the demon possessed are engaging in this, and the amplified audible activity is evidence of also impunity. It's also evidence of their obsession. In the same way that the fake sun still being here at 7:34 in the morning, and I'm capturing it at 1:40 in the afternoon over the top of my head. So this is the very asinine an obvious criminal engagement in the P.O.C. where the entity that is, again, not very sharp, where you are suggesting that the sun is an idle object and that it takes a series of hours to go from the left side of the front door at 408 West G Street, and the ecological address is essentially the same with negligible movement when it's merely over the top of my head as opposed to being on the east side of my person. It is now at its zenith at the top of my head while I'm at the same address. From 7:34 as I captured on video to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 6 hours later at 1 approximately 1:40 in the afternoon. That is the asininity that is serving for the unprecedented prosecution of the United States government and exposing an unprecedented basis of hypocrisy and public corruption in California, in the United States, and exposing what is, again, surveillance as a way of reality, as opposed to a free society that has constitutionally protected privacy, all right, and laws that constitutionally bind and authorize the government and the executive branch, bodies such as the police. These are all fallacies with regard to federal group stalking monitoring as it is being exposed, all right? And you know all of that based on the maintenance of an entirely fake sun, as it is appropriately named, okay? The entity is engaging in this, and I want to be clear, the federal government is acting and is engaging in what is that component, which is psychological warfare. And that is what I remain subject to by a bunch of inferior demons who are obsessively consumed with me, are obsessively trying to associate themselves with me. And this is just the diseased minds of those who are demon possessed. And it includes, again, this same person who is actually irrelevant, who represents a terrorist threat to my life. And I've already done my due diligence in documenting this gang stalker who represents the abuse of the government that the government is permitting, and all the ways in which that is going to be exposed. I'm going to prosecute for that. That's an unlawful threat to my life, safety, and well-being. And any ways in which that is being perpetuated, that is being enabled and facilitated by exposed corrupt actors, i.e. Jason Isaac Fields, who is literally irrelevant. This is somebody that has already been removed from my life circumstances. Any association is that which has been manufactured by that demon, by that unethical and corrupt and morally bankrupt gang stalking terrorist who has also abused their position in government. This is a violent sex offender. This is somebody who is a threat to children. This is somebody who is, in fact, mentally disturbed, okay? And their obsession with me creates no actual relationship with me, and it will always be what is existing only in their demented mind state while they are still gang stalking, okay? You are not both engaging in some sort of federal investigation and feigning to be some sort of gang stalker with the demons while you're engaging in psychological warfare and gang stalking is underway. You are engaged in the pattern of conduct, period. And there is no making legitimate what the federal government never had any constitutional authority to engage in the first place. So understand how everything that the federal government is engaging in, regardless of how they go about accomplishing, and I put that in air quotes, accomplishing justice, an American citizen should never have to be put in the position of documenting the government that is threatening their life in order to prove that the government is in fact the criminal that is actually mentally sick, while in subjecting any person, including that targeted individual, with the ability to prove the impossible, basically, in order to enforce their rights and protect themselves. There is no legitimate investigation by the federal government that is the gang stalker, that is still engaging in psychological warfare, that is delusional in their minds, abusing government positions, and aiding and facilitating gang stalking by the state, which they remain liable for and will be held accountable for. And there will be no future sharing in that triumphant victory with regard to the documentation that has proven the criminal acts of that federal government. They're not sharing in that. They're being exposed by it. And that federal government, this ignoramus, this sex offender, this delusional psychopath, and these are not I'm not just engaging in hyperbolic name calling. This is literally what Jason Isaac Fields, the things that he has committed against me. And this is somebody that is incapable of rehabilitating their reputation and rehabilitating their career. It is done. It's over in law enforcement. And to the extent that the federal government has permitted someone like this to continue to target me, to continue to exercise any sort of participation in the case against itself, because that's what the case against the state of California, it's a case against the U.S. government. The government is liable for that. The government is not even capable of making an American citizen whole where it is engaging in this inhumane experiment against an American citizen. And it requires demon-possessed, corrupt actors, incompetent, like Jason Isaac Fields, who have positions in government that they were never even qualified to have in the first place. All right. They acquire quote unquote favor while they serve Satan. And regardless of what it is that they would state about themselves and how they've changed, I'm here to speak the truth, that illusion is just that. It is an illusion. This is someone that continuously is engaging in what is spiritually attacking me, and also engaging in what is gang stalking, because that psychological warfare is the component to gang stalking that is actually happening in the physical, which I am continuously documenting. And this demon is engaging in that, and it is nothing that is friendly. It is nothing that is made legitimate with regard to some knowledge of information that the target individual. It is all irrelevant with regard to what an American citizen never has any basis to be subject to under any circumstances whatsoever. It is at all times the position that the federal government placed itself in, that the federal government does not change and become a friend of that American citizen. You have engaged in terrorism in the same way that terrorists from abroad do not become friends with the United States. They remain an enemy that with whom there is no negotiation, with whom that enemy maintains no position of authority or control with regard to how that relationship exists. This is what the federal government and those demon possessed within these agencies are also representing. It's the same with the gang stalking entity that are the people of the state. This is domestic terrorism that's happening amongst a population. You have in other words, a bunch of terrorists running around in the United States, as you are literally breaking down the practical operation and execution of federal group stalking and monitoring. So the entity is engaging in this, and I want to be clear, the entity that is associated with terrorists who are already documented on the record that want any future associations with me. If you are in any way associated in the past or currently or plan to in the future with a documented terrorist, a violent sex offender, a demented psychopath who will never have any dealings with me, never have any relationship, personal or professional, under any circumstances. If you are in any way associated with the federal agency or a state agency that Jason Isaac Fields is associated with, if you are in any way associated with Jason Isaac Fields, you will have no associations with me, personal or professional. I want to make that abundantly clear. This is the entity that's engaging in what is a pattern of conduct that is continuously threatening my life as I remain alive and I document in order to enforce my rights and protect myself, while that which the federal government engaged in at the outset is still engaging in, while I remain subject to that pattern of conduct, both being gang stalked here on earth and also being subject to an ongoing campaign of psychological warfare by violent sex offenders such as Jason Isaac Fields, who was not capable of keeping that a secret, who was not doing any good with regard to the ordinary target individual and any American citizen, where you are the offender at the outset. What the government fails to recognize and appreciate is that you do well by ceasing to engaging in terrorism, period. It is only the spirit of Satan that convinces terrorists who are engaging in the satanic pattern of conduct to continue, and that also some good is going to be produced from it and by it. And it is not. You are no partner of mine, and you will be no partner of mine. You will have no affiliation with me. You will be only prosecuted where you come into my presence, and I've already documented you. That's the purpose of the podcast. That's the purpose of the body of evidence of the P.O.C. And anyone associating with this person, you have no future endeavors with me. I want to make that abundantly clear. Neither does this demented, demon-possessed psychopath. Sexually obsessed, sexually perverted, entirely delusional in the mind of this person that needs serious psychiatric attention by someone that's not demon possessed like he is. And I'm referencing again this sex offender that is to date monitoring my genitalia in the bathroom like all the rest of the people of the state where I remain at Woodside Senior Apartments. And I want to make sure that that is abundantly clear. I am not mincing words. I said exactly what I mean. Okay, no gang stalker has any privacy. No gang stalker has any identity within the government to protect themselves or shield themselves from what is equal application of the law. You are not superior to it, nor are you any person where the Lord is any respecter of persons. You attack his children. You serve Satan in doing so. You fail to repent. You continue in the same. You are the same. It does not change. And I want to be clear, what is in my future, which includes justice, which includes absolute deliverance, anyone associating with demons like Jason Isaac Fields, you will have no future association with me. any organization, any person, any sort of institution, whatever it is that you claim to be and wanting any future endeavors. You need to understand this, and people and demons and enemies like Jason Isaac Fields. Okay, it is currently 2:09 p.m. The entity is engaged in ongoing gang stalking. The delusional mindset of the demon possessed is proven through the ongoing criminal pattern of conduct, where it is already proven, and the entity is engaging in what is a defeated effort. In the same way, where you can recognize that demented spirit as it operates in a person, such as this documented terrorist, Jason Isaac Fields, abusing their position in government in a position that they are literally incompetent in. That's why they have committed the things that they have already committed against an American citizen and against one that they were formerly associated with in their lives, because they are, again, drunk with the spirit of Satan, and also to be prosecuted under laws where they are not capable of engaging in this sort of harm against any other American citizen, and it is not capable to try to unilaterally rehabilitate your career or your reputation, absent the consent of the person that you were gang stalking, by the way. And also, while you're still engaging in that satanic warfare, the same spiritual attacks, and then also you're literally engaging in that pattern of conduct while the American citizen remains subject to it. Regardless of what you want to call it, being some sort of investigation, that American citizen is still being gang stalked, period. And it remains, again, the responsibility of the federal government to never engage in it and facilitate it in the first place. And incompetent state actors, mentally ill, he's incompetent not only because he's in government engaging in criminal conduct, because of that level of corruption, because of that level of facilitation, whether that demon-possessed gang stalker wants to admit it or not, it is under all circumstances professional incompetence. He is also literally incompetent because he is mentally depraved. This person is a psychopath. And anyone associating with him, professionally or personally, you will have no dealings with me whatsoever. Okay, it is 2:11 p.m. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:02 p.m. Well, it's currently 6:06 p.m. At approximately 6:02 p.m. is what I want to reference. While I am in operation my communication device, and everything is always pursuant to surveillance that is underway, as I'm exposing how surveillance in the United States is ceaselessly underway as it's embedded into the way that we live, regardless of your economic status, regardless of whether you live in an actual building, structure, home, or whether you're even outside. Everyone is under surveillance as it's shown through the specific environment that defies nature. In addition to that, I remain subject to surveillance, which is criminal activity that AVANATH Capital Management, a third-party gang stalking company, and those oxymoronic terms are going to be used against AVANATH Capital Management, LLC, to prosecute them. And at 6:02 p.m., while the fake sun and the engineered light that I'm capturing inside of the unit, it's all uploaded to the Google Drive already as of 6:07 p.m., the coated patio glass door, as it gets bright orange and then it goes back, dims down again. I take pictures of that ongoing vacillation, which is light activity creation, and the concentrated level of light that's remaining on the same living room wall as it gets brighter and dimmer on the same east living room wall, where it is even on a cloudy day, which is the case now at 6:07 p.m., where that engineered light is present both in the dark before the fake sun rises and even on a cloudy day when the fake sun is covered up, including when the fake sun is remaining for over 10 hours at this same apartment complex, where everyone in units 33 through 64 are going to prison. Indeed, including AVANATH Capital Management LLC's employees, including LYNDA Reyes, who is engaging in what is psychological torture with the terrorists who are gang stalking and engaging in the predictable pattern of stalking via impulsible light that is fanning through Tracy Banks's living room pursuant to the pattern of conduct. And what is relevant is the entity that is engaged in what is very petty acts that are serving for very serious consequences. And there is no mystery about who is serving who is going to serve the penalties inherent to gang stalking in the form of stalking with Impossible Light. And it's everybody that's in the building, and they're all over 55 years old. And they are gang stalking by residents in units 33 through 64. And the employee who you see under the fake sun at 1:44 in the afternoon, who you see under the fake sun at 7:34 in the morning, is also a part of that same gang stalking population who are together targeting me. And they are also together targeting me while Impossible Light, that is a supernatural occurrence. It is as supernatural as the fake sun being over all of them while they're stalking me together. So that's what's happening at 6:02 p.m. It again occurs approximately 2.5 minutes later at 6:04 p.m. I do start recording at 6:06 p.m. because the entity that is gang stalking and doing things such as stalking with light are always focused on me and literally seeking attention from me as I merely prosecute these demons, and also seeking some sort of the only reaction, the only prize that you get is specific and personalized identification as a sex offender, as a terrorist, as a psychopath, literally, and the creepiest type of individual that is to be exposed and known by behavior and presence in the United States, where federal group stalking and monitoring is underway. That's the prize that the gang stalking police, Department of Ontario police achieve when you're being documented as gang stalking. As you will see, the documents that are uploaded for April 3rd, 2025, April 2nd, 2025, and are updated as of April 1st, 2025, where I did document the people of the state and all their license plates, capturing screenshots, and reminding you about the placement of the fake sun, where the Ontario police have a demon-possessed gang stalker operating an instrument of interstate commerce, that is a helicopter, while they are gang stalking using helicopter, incriminating the city itself that is engaged in expenditures of resources, a lot of them, to gang stalk, which is also proven because the pattern of gang stalking, as it's documented from April 1st to April 3rd, under a fake sun that's remaining over the apartment complex. And also that body of evidence is showing that that same environment is remaining while LAPD is engaging in the same pattern of what is identified and understood and clearly recognized as gang stalking. These are demons who are stalking as a whole state effort, using the resources of the city, where the mayor is not ignorant about the fact that helicopters are used to terrorize, stalk, and psychologically harm American citizens. And the city of Ontario, via Ontario police, are doing so, as I documented in 3 documents that are uploaded to the Google Drive. And that would be seen on the Google Drive that is available for the world to look at. It is on the P.O.C. website. So the P.O.C. website is, this is the POC.wordpress.com, and you would go to the documentation tab, and then you would select look, and then you can go by year. We are in the year 2025, which is what you would select. And you would go to the current month, which is April, and on a day-to-day basis, on an ongoing basis, which is pursuant to what it is that I'm subject to, the federal government is ceaselessly engaging in an ongoing unlawful and inhumane experiment, which is federal group stalking and monitoring, which is going to be prosecuting the government, including for what the unemployed and for what the to-be unemployed gang stalkers of the Ontario police are going to be prosecuted for and disbanded for with regard to the Ontario Police Department. And you can see them engaging in what is very psychotic, and also what is also speaking to their appetite for sexual violence. They are also those that masturbate and engage in sexual activity, and engage in, as a department, monitoring the genitalia of a woman who they are stalking as an entire police department effort. And it is also exhibited while I'm capturing in documentation the helicopter activity over the senior citizen apartment complex over the building I am in, where the fake sun is also over that building that I am in and remaining in alignment to the building that I am in, where also engineered light like that which is fanning inside of the same defendant Tracy Banks's apartment moments after I've documented and uploaded this documentation of the Ontario police gang stalking with the people of the state. So I want to be clear, because I want to recall the people of the state that are also gang stalking in concert with the demons of the Ontario police by helicopter. They are going to federal prison. I'm going to remind you about those gang stalkers. I'm also going to remind you about what it is that I'm doing, which is on my communication devices, which inspired the entity gang stalking by helicopter, like what happened yesterday at 5:34 p.m., where the ongoing pacing that I documented on podcast while I was referencing criminal acts of obstruction of justice, where psychopaths engage in psychological torture tactics, which all you do in response is document it in order to prosecute them for their psychopathic engagement and gang stalking, in order for them to be subject to what is federal imprisonment and diagnosis for their actual mental illness. That needs to be a part of a body of material material that is studied and correcting what is a lot of misinformation about actual mental illness. The entity is engaging in gang stalking by helicopter, as I documented yesterday, April 3rd, 2025, as I'm publishing information, documenting, collecting information pertaining to the criminal act of obstruction by the removal of evidence off of the internet, which is an unlawful intrusion in an ongoing investigation. An investigation that an American citizen has to initiate on their own when the federal government, through the corrupt gang stalking such as police departments, who in real time engaged in the act of gang stalking by helicopter, while I was referencing on my communication device that's under surveillance, the fact that a criminal act of obstruction of justice of that nature is why it is a criminal offense to interfere with an ongoing investigation that is executed by publishing evidence about the gang stalking conduct that you remain subject to that's underway by a government that uses helicopters to obstruct justice as you expose it by putting it on the internet. And so while I'm on capturing this on podcast at 5:34, as I documented in the podcast yesterday, the demons continued pacing as I was referencing it. That was my means of documenting the fact that the helicopter activity continued. And then as I stepped out at 5:57, you could hear the helicopter activity louder and louder, and I immediately went into video. And that's where you will see a psychopath, a delusional one, and also a sexually perverted one that is also obsessed with me and is stalking me and uses helicopters to engage in their stalking conduct that is shared by a whole police department that puts aside millions of dollars to keep me under surveillance in the city of Ontario at Woodside Senior Apartments in concert with its co-defendants, who it is directly incriminating, who are all going to prison inside of the apartment building where they were doing circles over, doing donuts over in helicopter. Everyone in units 48 through 64, as well as the adjacent building stalking me in the path in units 33 through 48. They're all going to prison. And the mental health patients in unit 41 and unit 55, and Tracy Banks in unit 51, they're going to mental asylums based on the mental illness, such as pacing in a helicopter. That is evidence that's going to put a gang stalker in a mental asylum as opposed to what is automatic federal prison. But I want to be clear, this is the substance of what I published online and even the time frame. I'll go ahead and take a screenshot of it because you'll be able to see what it is that I published online, which is always the inspiration. Well, the entity is gang stalking me. They're always focused on what I am doing, what it is that I am engaged in, and while I'm prosecuting and documenting, they're always engaged in what is it that I've exposed about them, while they are hostile because they're stalking me and they want to get away with stalking and not being seen as stalking. They want to worship me and my genitalia. They just don't like the fact that I'm able to prove that the fact that they worship me and my genitalia. They want to be obsessed with me. They just don't like the fact that I'm able to prove the fact that I know, and I'm also going to enforce my rights because they are obsessed with me and they can't control it to the extent that they are stalking me. That is born of obsession. And you are proven to be stalking and obsessed with me by living at the apartment complex where the fake sun and engineered light and the government is stalking with you, regardless of your date of move-in. The entity is engaging in this, and that stalking with engineered light, which is a proven occurrence. I'll go ahead and leave you even in the podcast, if you watch the video podcast on YouTube, I will reference the video so you could see an example of engineered light sweeping through the air and across the cabinet space inside of the same defendant's apartment. Directed light is no means of some sort of mentally ill person's imagination. There is no such hallucination. It is a real supernatural occurrence, which is the admission of demons who are surrounding you. Demon-possessed people who are surrounding you are stalking. That's exactly how it's going to be treated under law. And demons who are surrounding you who are stalking are within the government. That's the significance of exceedingly violent sex offenders such as Jason Isaac Fields, who is still engaging in an ongoing component, a psychological warfare, an obsessed demon who was gang stalking and is also gratified by the ongoing gang stalking and psychological torture tactics that are underway, while this delusional person is under the impression that he is going to force me to have association with me, that he's going to force me to have any sort of dealings with him while I am subject to gang stalking. I want to be clear that this is a means of trying to coerce some sort of manufactured relationship and association while he is still gang stalking. That is literally some sort of means of, that is literally a psychopathic means of trying to threaten someone, actually threatening someone while you're gang stalking them and trying to coerce them into dealing with you while you're stalking them. And you're gang stalking for purposes of committing murder and kidnapping. This is what Jason Isaac Fields is engaged in concert with the demons who are all going to prison at Woodside, in concert with the demons who are documented by license plate, in concert with the demons who are gang stalking by helicopter. Okay, and this is speaking to the mental illness of all of those, including demons who are engaging in what is practicing witchcraft, seeking to Satan and Satan's children, Satan's minions are those that engage in witchcraft by trying to force something, force you to do anything. That's a means of manipulation. That's witchcraft, in case you weren't aware of that. But this demon-possessed gang stalker, Jason Isaac Fields, literally is a Satanist and is engaged in things such as sex rituals, such as practicing voodoo, believes in all this nonsense regarding spell work and all that. And the reason why it is nonsense is because it is Satan is no formidable adversary to those who are in Christ Jesus and covered by the blood. And so I do want to make sure that I'm always calling out the demon possessed who are still in a position where they need to repent. This is somebody that poses a real threat. In the same way that engineered light is a threat, a demon-possessed gang stalker who is monitoring me and gang stalking me as a population, and also engaging in that ongoing component, which is always also underway, the spiritual attacks by those who will never have any sort of partnership or dealings with me in the natural, those who like to reckon themselves as being necessary and what is the unilateral means of exposing the government and prosecuting it. Jason Isaac Fields remains a defendant, remains a terrorist, remains a sex offender and a predator, also a pervert, engaged in and very familiar with the sexual preferences of my mother, and is sexually obsessed with me as well. This is, again, incestuous conduct, a sexually perverted conduct, and that is a spirit that belongs to Satan. Okay, this is the person that is still targeting me and is under no circumstances. And I want to be clear, this is somebody that is delusional and thinking that gang stalking me is going to force me to cooperate with this person or permit this person to be in my presence and to be anything less than an unlawful threat to my life and safety. Somebody that is delusional with regard to gang stalking me into some sort of position whereby they are able to be seen and recognized as some sort of hero that helped at any point in this juncture, and they have not. They are gang stalking, they are targeting, they're engaged in spiritual attacks, they serve Satan, they are an opponent, but they are a defeated opponent, and I am still being gang stalked, which is the prosecution of the federal government, and I'm being gang stalked while I'm subject to surveillance online, all right? And this is relevant to the psychotic act of stalking with engineered light, which is placing the mental health patients of the Ontario Police, people like Corey Watson, whose mental illness is going to be at the forefront of his prosecution for federal group stalking and monitoring when he is sentenced, and he is actually done with law enforcement permanently as a documented terrorist, a sex offender, and one who is engaged in the pattern of conduct, as opposed to any execution of a job of any law enforcement officer, let alone the wildly corrupt and very heavily documented Ontario Police Department who are hostile. And that is relevant to the stalking with engineered light inside of this apartment. Moments after I'm publishing evidence about the Ontario Police gang stalking on April 1st, April 2nd, and April 3rd, and the documentation of the fake son when they are gang stalking under that fake son in concert with the people of the state. And also while they are gang stalking, while I am publishing evidence online about where the pattern of conduct is underway, how it's underway on the internet, and how the people of the state on the video of the internet shall be subject to a criminal prosecution as well, because it's an unlawful threat. As surely as police officers gang stalking you is an unlawful threat, you are protecting the kidnapper, you're protecting the stalker, you're protecting the criminal. That is the bully, the U.S. government, as opposed to what is protecting that targeted individual when you are doing things such as removing evidence off of the internet where the government has no privacy. The government is using the people of the state. You document the people of the state and any and everything else that you have, while they have sacrificed any sort of constitutional provisions such as privacy when they are gang stalking. Okay, the entity is operating under some delusion with regard to how the Constitution shall operate when this corrupt system is underway. You're not going to have it both ways. You're going to be a terrorist and be prosecuted, or you're going to abide by the law and enjoy the benefits of the U.S. Constitution. You're not having it both ways, and that's what the gang stalking entity is seeking to engage in, and you're going to prosecute for that. That's called malice. Okay, and it's also relevant to the mental illness of those that are gang stalking, just like, again, this sex offender, Jason Isaac Fields, who, and this is why I'm documenting it, because this person remains someone that is delusional, remains a threat, and anyone associating with this person, including any government organization, will have no dealings with me. Okay, I will not be associating myself with any corrupt agency, and that corruption is identified merely through association with very mentally disturbed persons such as Jason Isaac Fields, who is no hero, who takes no part in the prosecution of the state of California other than admitting to wrongdoings that this corrupt actor committed, other than engaging in any sort of means where justice is accomplished. That does not make this person a hero. This is something that is a means of an inevitable means of the prosecution of the state, which the P.O.C. already has provided for. So the entity is, you're not going to be mistaken for a hero also when you are still literally gang stalking. This is the delusion of one that wants to spiritually attack, and then before the public, before social media platforms, wants to like have a position next to me, standing next to me like we are partners, and we are not. We're literally strangers. I don't even know this person. I certainly don't know this person that married my mother. I don't know this person that was gang stalking me in secret. I don't know this person that badmouthed me. All right, to the extent to which I don't even need to know about, because I know enough in order to prosecute, and I know enough in order to never affiliate myself with the likes of such delusional people who are dangerous to the public and themselves. Somebody that is clearly tormented, somebody that is clearly miserable. Okay, that there is no means of coercing any sort of relationship, professional or personal or otherwise. It's never going to happen. And I want to make sure that that is abundantly clear while I'm subject to stalking by light. What I want to do right now is remind you about who is going to federal prison while I am documenting and publishing evidence about their gang stalking with Mike Lorenz and the Ontario Police Department, who use helicopters to engage in that POC. And the people of the state that are going to federal prison for that criminal act of obstruction of justice, the demon-possessed that resort to such supernatural means of terrorizing and psychologically harming someone, and that is merely because of the petty acts that they engage in, such as, I'm mad at you for publishing evidence about me gang stalking you, and so I'm going to terrorized with impossible light activity. All right, this is the supernatural ongoing occurrence of gang stalking. Many of these things are in the environment where you're not paying attention to it, and it's very obvious when light is just manifesting out of nowhere, just flying across in the middle of in the air, things that you are perhaps not paying attention to. It is a demonic means of what is communicating a threat, particularly when the demon possessed know that you are aware of what it is that you're subject to, and you're even documenting it. That is speaking to the intent to threaten and terrorize, and in addition to what is the unlawful act itself, because the government has no constitutional basis. There has been no contract amongst the government and the people in the United States to agree to be kept under surveillance. So it is already criminal. I am documenting it. It is relevant material for legal analysis with regard to what the stalker knows, what the stalker engages in, and the intent and the impact on that target individual where that stalker engages in things such as stalking via dynamic engineer light inside of the apartment. The people of the state that are gang stalking me and engaging in criminal acts of intimidation or retaliation, which is relevant to how long they are going to federal prison, is the heavyset Latino male who was gang stalking on video at 5:34 p.m. Excuse me, at 5:57 p.m. on April 3rd, 2025, where he is accessing the vehicle license 6GBB673. This is the same gang stalker that is on video gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department. If I believe it is April 2nd, 2025. Let me go ahead and confirm that, because he has documented gang stalking with the Ontario police, who used helicopter within the last few days. And the people of the state remain at the one address where the fake son's there all day long. And you can look at basically the entity gang stalking with helicopter at Woodside Senior Apartments and see the fake son at all the positions over the same exact location. That's the prosecution of the people of the state. There are so many angles whereby you are able to prosecute for blatant terrorism and psychopaths that are stalking as a police department. This stalking is satanic. So these are people that are violent sex offenders. These are people that are practicing surveillance as a city operation, which is the removal of the gang stalking mayor, a terrorist leader, who is also a sex offender and is also privy to the moments when my genitalia is inside of the space of the bathroom, and the police are engaging in using resources to operate a surveillance system in that space with the sex offenders that are gang stalking by residents at Woodside Senior Apartments. Okay, egregious sexual violence that the city of Ontario practices is literally embodied in the evidence of stalking under a fake son, and using helicopter to do so. This entity, let me get the pattern of. Right, so I do want to confirm that the people of the state that are gang stalking, as I documented on yesterday, April 3rd, 2025 at 5:57 p.m. and before that on my podcast at 5:34 p.m. when I'm in the midst of what is legally relevant discussion, literally the substance of whatever it is that I am talking about, whatever it is that I'm doing. It is legally relevant while you're subject to surveillance, while you're subject to gang stalking, and it's also legally relevant because you are, so that's relevant to what the entity is retaliating against, for example, or why they are intimidating you, aside from the fact that they're intimidating you because they're stalking you. The entity is obsessed with me. The entity is stalking me. These are demons. They're mentally ill. What it is that I am doing when I am documenting and publishing evidence about them is also legally relevant with regard to criminal acts of retaliation, intimidation, harassment, terrorism, etc., otherwise posing what is referred to as the impermissible threat, as this prosecution is exposed to an unprecedented basis of prosecuting under federal law that I advocate, which is SIIS, systematic infliction of inhumane suffering. So under such legislation that I advocate in order to prosecute domestic terrorism that is systematically underway throughout this country, the entity is posing an impermissible threat while it is engaging in such acts. And it is also shown, that's why I always give details about what I'm doing, because these are very petty people. But this pettiness is not just the things that third and fourth graders are doing on a playground. This pettiness is rooted in what is very serious, as you would refer to it, narcissistic conduct. Pettiness can rapidly escalate into what is the inspiration, the motivation, the cause of what is murder. Okay, so this is speaking to what is pettiness at the unfathomable degree of what is gang stalking someone. And the demon possessed are very petty with regard to tit for tat. There is no tit for tat when you're being gang stalked and you're being prosecuted for gang stalking somebody. So this is, again, in the mind state of the mentally ill. However, they are under the impression Satan is using them to engage in what is spiritually attacking. You're prosecuting what is a spiritual attack. Gang stalking is a spiritual act. These are demons. This is a practice of witchcraft. The engineered light, that's demonic. The fake sun, that's demonic. The amplified noise levels, that's demonic. The simultaneity of activity creation based on what I do or as I do it or while I discuss something, that's demonic. Okay, so this is spiritual in nature. But it's also evidence that is proven through tangible evidence, and it's also proving the unlawful behavior of the government that is also engaging in unprecedented criminal surveillance that we as American citizens haven't agreed to. Neither have we agreed that the government do it and engage in that, and violating our privacy with the people of the state, the very civilian population itself. We haven't agreed to that at all. This doesn't even exist under a means of the government having lawful jurisdiction to investigate any one of us for crimes that they have facts and circumstances that suggest that there's a reason why you have a right to investigate me. The entity's just gang stalking because the entity just wants to target me. Okay, now the context is that these are demons and this is spiritual warfare, and the demon possessed know who I am, the threat that I am, and sought to defame me and silence me before I even got to the point of speaking to the spiritual truth and speaking to the spiritual reality and exposing the wiles of the devil. Okay, so that's why the government is targeting me, and you need to understand that the government is engaged in very heavy satanic conduct. Nonetheless, I want to document the people of the state. And so this third party that is gang stalking on video, accomplished very easily by merely crossing path. This is somebody that is obsessively surrounding. Obsession is known while he's under the fake sun at 5:57 p.m. in this video at the same address, 408 West G Street, in concert with the Ontario Police, who you can see on video that is published yesterday, April 3rd, 2025 at 5:57 p.m. Okay, this is relevant to, again, video documentation captured this year, same time of year at 8:31 in the morning. The fake sun's over me at the same apartment, and the entity is gang stalking by flying over the apartment in helicopter. Like I said, the entity gang stalking with the police is going to put everybody here in prison already. Okay, but like I said, the entity is gang stalking, and this third party license 6 Apple 42707. This is a heavyset Latino male. He is on video gang stalking on April 1st, 2025 in the video captured at 12:02 p.m. while the fake sun is over the same apartment building. And the entity is gang stalking in concert with also. These are third parties who are being documented, whose information is published and updated. And as I do so, things that are terrorizing, that are criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment, which is ongoing criminal acts committed by stalkers who are stalking a woman in violation of the Violence Against Women Act. are doing so with regard to stalking with engineered light. And so every defendant's license plate that I'm reading, they are going to be prosecuted with regard to the criminal act of obstruction of justice, while they are harassing me as an entity, terrorizing me as an entity, while monitoring me as an entity based on federal stalking conduct that they are all engaging in as an entity. As moments earlier, before this entity is gang stalked with impossible light that's occurring inside of the dark living room, where no sunlight is just shooting like lasers. Okay, there's no laser tag with sunlight inside of our homes, inside of the apartment. Okay, the entity is stalking with engineered light and doing so in a manner moments after I'm publishing evidence about these very defendants. And these are the very defendants whose time in federal prison is going to be mindful of this evidence that I am being diligent enough to keep record of. Okay, because this is the pattern of conduct of obstruction of justice, the pattern of conduct of harassment by the entity, the pattern of conduct of terrorism and psychological torture tactics. And so that's going toward how long you're going to sit in prison. All right, how much the entity is gang stalking as one with impunity. Okay, and speaking to their mental illness together. Okay, the mental illness of this third party that is gang stalking, accessing two vehicles. This heavy-set Latino male is gang stalking by accessing the vehicle license 6 Apple 42707 on April 1st, 2025. And also gang stalking by accessing the vehicle on 5 hours later under the fake sun, by the way, on April 3rd, 2025 at 5:57 p.m. by merely crossing path inside of the same parking lot, accessing vehicle with license plate 6GBB673. He is gang stalking, as you can look at the specific environment, in concert with the Ontario Police, gang stalking by residents. He is going to federal prison, and this is not the first time, or these are two separate occasions. These are not the only incidents where this third party in particular is gang stalking with the Ontario Police, is aware and has been maintaining an ongoing criminal campaign of surveillance about evidence where he is also documented, and his impunity is noted with regard to how long he's sitting in federal prison. All right, and also the mental illness inherent to gang stalking and the impunity inherent to gang stalking me, being obsessed with me, sexually violating me. And on top of that, this person does not even know me, has never met me. Okay. License DBUNI. This is the third party gang stalking. This is a female who resides at the facilitating venue of Woodside Senior Apartments inside of unit number 66. She's gang stalking with the Ontario Police on April 1st, 2025. And this is information that I did update to the Google Drive. And that is information. 1 second. Let me look at this. Information that I did update to the Google Drive, today, as I took another screenshot, updating their, I updated the, hold on. At 4:55 p.m. I updated with a screenshot because I am updating D Bunny, the unit 66. Her license plate is DBUNI as opposed to what I originally put, DBUNNI. Her license plate of the black Mercedes is DBUNI. And I did take a screenshot and I did upload this, which is published on the Google Drive, this update to the gang stalkers who are targeting with the Ontario Police, which is automatic federal prison. And if you are not already subject to federal prison by residents, by gang stalking, by residents inside of units 33 through 64, if I have not already documented you gang stalking with the Ontario Police on another occasion, which is, again, the case for the people of the state whose license plate I documented. So let me, a couple of these other co-defendants. So this is what I'm uploading, so I want to make sure that is clear. License 6GBB673, the same vehicle operating, the same, third party accessing and operating the vehicle with license 6A42707, engaging in what is gang stalking, terrorizing me as a criminal means of retaliation, intimidation, harassment, terrorism as an entity, as I am publishing evidence about him gang stalking as it's published online. The people of the state are also gang stalking with what I published on April 2nd. Let me see. So I'm going to just go through the folders, and you can do the same thing that I'm doing, by the way. Looking at all the evidence that I published, it's all readily available and published for the education of the public and also for the prosecution of the state. It's literally a document repository for purposes of prosecuting the state which is exposing what the federal government is doing throughout this country. So what is published today, and I want to confirm, it looks like any screenshots added. Yeah, I uploaded a series of screenshots at 4:55, 5:06, 5:07, 5:08. And this is speaking to the entity that is gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department on video at 2:21 p.m., where you will also see the fake sun over the same exact apartment building where I'm at the same unit 51. And again, this is where the sun rises at 7:34 a.m. This is the evidence that the demon possessed provided to me, and it is a very easy prosecution in understanding how federal group stalking and monitoring, that is gang stalking, that is recognizing the crime scene where the government is engaging in criminal surveillance in concert with an entire population, a population that will also live around that targeted individual in order to keep them under surveillance. That is gang stalk them on a 24-hour basis. The government that is using helicopters to do so and also engaging in a pattern of kidnapping is the police department, Ontario Police, who are being disbanded and whose obsession with me continues in the criminal act of retaliation and terrorism, criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment. And evidence of stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act is documented hereby as I capture this evidence. And I will refer to previously captured incidences of absolutely impossible light activity shooting through the same apartment. It is license 8VOP671. License 5WUB715 is the gang stalker in Unit 55. License 6YOZ533 are gang stalking as they are sharing in the criminal elements of monitoring, as I am documenting that pattern of conduct at this apartment where the fake sun is over the apartment complex at 2:21 p.m. 2:21 p.m. and 5:57 p.m. where you were seeing the fake sun at the same exact apartment complex is the evidence supporting Mike Lawrence's permanent removal from law enforcement as a domestic terrorist and somebody that is still engaged in what is federal group stalking and monitoring, as Mike Lorenz is a demon-possessed person, and also the demon-possessed the demon-possessed employees of the Ontario Police Department, the gang stalking police officers themselves are demon-possessed and still engaging in that pattern of conduct. And while I engage in publishing evidence about them, about what they are doing, I don't have to make it up because they do it, and they do it so much. They made themselves an easy target while they are targeting me for disbanding federal prison, mental asylums, and permanent removal from law enforcement. By the way, a criminal record for being an egregious sex offender, gang stalking. So those are the people of the state that are gang stalking on April 2nd, and this is evidence that I published online. Pursuant to the Ontario Police gang stalking in that incredible means, using helicopter resources of the city that is devoted, committed to literally fitting in their budget. The means whereby federal group stalking and monitoring is maintained is systematically underway, such as through the gang stalking police who use resources such as planes and helicopters. I am also uploading today looks like 523, 522, 517, 514, 528. I'm uploading the document regarding gang stalking that I experienced, which is what I originally referenced. So that is, again, license 6GBB673, and that's the same heavyset Latino male accessing also the vehicle documented on what was April 1st, if I recollect correctly, with the license 6A42707. So I just want to make sure that's April 3rd, April 2nd that I read, and indeed April 1st. And these are also 3 days where you can look at the video evidence that is published online of the entity gang stalking under a fake sun over one apartment. Also mindful that the entity was keeping a fake sun that was rising and setting at Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles, 1800 to 1818 North Alvarado Street, Los Angeles, California, 90026. There was no point where the sun moved in any position away from the apartment complex of Alvarado Gardens and over my head, over the top of my head, rising in alignment to my living room windows, setting in alignment to me and my bedroom window, replete with what is engineered light, that which is not, it's also not sunlight, okay? So that's the pattern of conduct that's also coexisting with looking at the series of video evidence that the entity provided against itself, against the police department, against the people of the state who are going to prison, who are being prosecuted as a whole apartment complex, stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act, who are all engaged in gang stalking, engaged in the pattern of conduct of domestic terrorism and psychological torture as AVANATH Capital Management is being prosecuted, and through the body of evidence that is in the form of just gang stalking by helicopter, as it's documented on the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd, and you will see the evidence of the fake sun, where demons are engaging in surveillance, and they use what I've spoken from the beginning. They use helicopters, they use airplanes, and they require the people of the state to criminally cooperate in that psychopathic endeavor that is inexplicable for any human being to engage in. And it's also something that they never want, they being the demon possessed, who are very much aware of the weirdness, the creepiness, the perverted aspect, the also the illegality, okay, and also the fact that they're demons in doing so. Oh, they're very much aware that psychopaths are not ignorant about what they're doing. They engage in it. They like to engage in it. They tend to do more of that, where they are also convinced that they'll get away with it. You are looking at psychopaths that are so disturbed, they are already proven and surrounded by insurmountable, not just evidence, but insurmountable evidence for which there are inevitable consequences. And no federal agent, no act of suppressing it online is going to, I told you before, they are going to suffer the consequences that I've already stated, and it is inevitable, and they are still gang stalking. Okay? This is speaking to what is identifying actual mental illness on the part of the gang stalkers themselves, who, by the way, are using the police department that is using helicopters. Okay, and it isn't a whole government effort. The unemployed and the police department gang stalking together, demons alike. All right, and so that's relevant. I want to make sure that those license plates are associated with the criminal act of stalking with impossible light activity. This is what the demons are doing when they are all sitting around obsessing over me while I'm sleeping. The moment that I wake up, hostile about, oh, she documented something yesterday. So this is the pettiness, the type of sick things that the demons sit around ruminating over and clearly this is the case when you're engaging in stalking with impossible light, which is an established fact. And it's obvious, speaking to what you clearly intend, because impossible light activity is not something that's accidentally happening. All right. The entity is engaging in gang stalking, and the evidence of impossible light activity points directly to that. And the entity does so with regard to the psychopathic appetite for altogether defeated efforts of the demons who are thinking that they're engaging in some sort of act of retaliation. It's not actual retaliation. While they engage in efforts that are designed to retaliate, they will be federally prosecuted for that. So if you were going to federal prison for 7 years, you're going for longer than 7 years. That's how that's going to work. Okay. The entity is engaged in the P.O.C. It's currently Friday, April 4th, 2025. It's 6:48 p.m. This is documentation of stalking with impossible light activity that is flying about inside of the living room. The state when this light activity occurs is the living room is dark. Okay, it's at 6:04 p.m. The living room is dark, but of course the engineered light remains on the same east living room wall, including while the fake sun is outside, and even while the patio glass door is no longer coated with brightly colored orange engineered light. That engineered light has nothing to do with the fake sun that's outside. It has nothing to do with the engineered light that's coating the patio glass door. It is engineered light that is a distinct method in the same way that it's on the ceilings, all over the floor. It illuminates the living room itself in different hues. It has nothing to do with the actual fake sun. That is a real thing. You're looking at the fake sun. That's a demonic, a supernatural thing. It's supernatural because you have a fake sun over you, whatever state that you're in. It's not going to cause any sunlight over you. For example, in Michigan, when you are standing outside, when I am looking at the fake sun remain over me at Ontario, Woodside Senior Apartments at 408 West G Street. The fake sun over me, and there's only one. That's why it's called exactly what it is, a fake sun. No longer entertaining the illusions of Satan and demons. These are facts. The natural environment, there is one sun. The one sun would not sit over one apartment building and in alignment to one apartment building for 10 plus hours. And it is also a fact that that one sun would not be over you, causing any sunlight over your house in Michigan while still not moving, while I'm still looking at it from morning until the evening. This is not rocket science, people. And any fifth grader can understand that. We also understand how the natural environment works. And the sun, which is a gaseous ball of fire, which is not hovering and sitting around directly over the top of our heads, sitting adjacent to buildings, we're looking at it outside of our windows as opposed to being above our head, elevated in the sky, does not cause sunlight to be on the inside of our homes, on the ceiling. It doesn't cause light to create multiple shadows above our head. None of this is sunlight. Neither is that an intelligent imitation of the natural environment, the sun that God himself created in the beginning. And he created one sun and one moon. All right. And it's in constant motion, constantly moving. This demonic imitation is the work of Satan. And it is also the identification of what is surveillance, and it is satanic in nature. And that's what needs to be recognized. And while the entity engages in what are defeated acts of actual retaliation, I'm going to prosecute them for engaging in the effort. Okay? It is 6:50 p.m. This is P.O.C.